What's going on, SoFi fans? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today I want to go over some of the data points, what shorts are doing, and what some analysts are recently doing for the upcoming Q3 earnings. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that, let's get right to it. So currently it is up 1.66%, a lot of volatility. So 808 is the low, 835 is the high, a fair amount of volume. So 5.6 million shares being traded, 21 is the average. At the time of doing this video, no SEC filings, no press releases, nothing like that. So it is just piggybacking off of the broader market, and there is a lot of optimism right now, especially considering there's a lot of heavy hitters unveiling their earnings this week. So I think there's some correlation as far as that. But when it comes down to SoFi though, I think just a lot of investors have Q3 on their minds, as does a lot of analysts. So in case you do not know, October the 30th is when their Q3 earnings is going to be. That is before the market does open, so they always like it bright and early. But based on some of the data that's been coming out, it does signal that most likely SoFi is going to have another very successful earnings associated to member growth, because keep in mind the APY has been still relatively high. Looking at the web traffic, it did go up from almost about 48% in September, or from August to September, and August was the all-time high, or the yearly high, I guess. So definitely that's been a very good indication of member growth in the past. So obviously this time around it's fair to assume that this will be the same. And when it comes down to members going up, obviously products will go up, deposits, it's kind of a beautiful domino effect when it comes down to that. But analysts, I'll give you a viewpoint on what some analysts are recently doing. So like I've signaled in the past, earnings per share, revenue, future guidance, those are kind of the 3 points that investors care about. And earnings per share, so previously there was 17 analysts with consensus of negative 7 cents per share, and it looks like now there is 16. So one analyst actually did withdraw their estimate, didn't change the consensus, so it is still negative 7 cents per share. But if you do kind of compare it with what happened with the revenue, it looks like some analysts are turning a little bit more bearish. So no new analysts did get in. So as you can see, 13 estimates prior, 13 estimates now, but it did go from 512.83 million to 512.48. So one analyst minorly adjusted it to be a little bit more bearish, so a little less revenue. But regardless, when it comes down to revenue and earnings per share, historically, SoFi does always far exceed the analyst expectations. So it's probably not that big of a deal, but once again, it is something just to kind of keep in mind, because I have not seen any analysts really downgrade the revenue in the past, especially leading up to any earnings. As far as any analyst ratings, though, there hasn't been any ones recently. So the last one was roughly about 5 days ago from Mizuho, Dan, who does have a 48% success rating, and they gave a $15 price target, which is fairly okay if you ask me. But when it comes down to some of the data points, starting off with options, $982,000 in calls being purchased versus $277,000 in puts. So based on this information, people are very optimistic about the foreseeable future with SoFi, and that's typically what does happen leading up to their earnings. There's always a FOMO rally that causes it to go up, and then regardless of the results of SoFi during their earnings, it always causes a sell-off. Time and again, it always does happen. I have no idea why. So once again, at least in the bigger picture though, it is trending up, and that's kind of the more important thing. And going back over here, as far as revenue estimates from analysts, this is what you want to see in a nice stock, a constant growth. And you don't see this up, down, sideways with a lot of the other kind of spec plays. SoFi does have a lot of good potential in the future, and analysts are starting to see that. And plus, as you can kind of see, it looks like Q1/Q2, this is where profitability will most likely occur based on analyst expectations, once again with SoFi. So that is right around the corner. But when it comes back down to options activity, just looking at the open interest with this upcoming expiry date of October the 20th, it is anticipated to be roughly above the $9 range. So kind of optimistic as far as that. If you are bearish, it is anticipated to be sub around 750, so between 750 and 8. So once again, kind of both extremes. It'll kind of go back down to the technicals a little bit though, but no matter what, a lot of big money getting in. So these are some of the transactions that have occurred on the secondary market over $100,000. One fairly good one today, so 1.03 million, but still the market just opened fairly recently, so there probably will be more to come down the line. But as far as what shorts are doing, I'll give you a quick overview of that. Short score is 61, utilization is 30.87, and just once again, I say this every time because I want it to be very, very clear. I'm only bringing this up because it's more of a good benchmark to use rather than saying it's a squeeze. So I definitely don't think it's going to be a squeeze stock. But 13.31% of the free float is being shorted, 112.2 million shares overall are being shorted. Currently, shorts are returning around 13,000 shares. So the fact that they are returning on a green day shows that they feel it's justified. So that's kind of a positive thing. Cost to borrow average is very similar to what it was on Friday, so no real change there, so 0.74%. And through Interactive Broker short availability, it does indicate that there is an excess of around 10 million shares available to be shorted. So if shorts really wanted to hammer SoFi, they could. And one thing to note, so early SoFi stages when I started to cover it quite frequently, there was always a very common occurrence that did happen, and that was cost to borrow minimum often being negative, which did mean that there was brokerages out there paying people to short SoFi. But it's been a very long time, almost a good about 6 months since I've seen the cost to borrow minimum be negative. So once again, that's a good indication that maybe the manipulation is done. And it's kind of funny, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, that's almost the same time that analysts started to be a little bit more optimistic on SoFi. I wonder if there's a correlation. So let me know your thoughts on that. But as far as some of the data points, with it currently at $8.27, it is between this P and this R1. So $8.57 is a very strong resistance, vice versa, $8.20 is a strong support. So it's kind of stuck in range bound a little bit. This morning it did dip below this P, but keep in mind with SoFi being in this range right here, it is kind of outpacing a lot of the other growth stocks. So once again, there is that good thing going for that. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi in the comments below. Give yourself a shout out in the comments if you have been buying, selling, holding. What's your viewpoint? And do you think that this Q3 earnings or the upcoming Q3 earnings is going to be the exact same? Do you think that there's going to be a FOMO rally, maybe to $9 or whatever else before it sells off, or do you think that there's going to be a sell-off this time? It's interesting. Definitely, regardless of the earnings, it's always sold off for whatever reason. So let me know your thoughts on all of that. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, appreciate all of you watching.